We have another documentary filmmaker, Maria Peak, who's joining us to talk about her film, Sextortion, The Hidden Pandemic. It is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I think it's important that we talk about that. This is a very harrowing documentary that you need to know about because I'm of the opinion that anyone under the age of 18 should have no access to social media. And this documentary will open your eyes to that. Social media is frightening for kids. Let's bring on director Maria Peak now to talk about her documentary. Thank you so much for joining us on the Film Threat Livecast. Maria, how's it going?
Thanks for having me, guys. Going great.
Tell us about Sextortion, The Hidden Pandemic. What led you to want to make this documentary? Because it's obviously something that's very personal. You can see the trailer. There's a link to the trailer in the description of this YouTube video. So check out the trailer after we talk to Maria. But this documentary is something that, first of all, I think I'm amazed that you needed to make a documentary. This is something that should be reported in the news daily. And it's shocking that these stories of kids being exploited is being completely ignored. What led you to making this documentary?
So we started this documentary during COVID. Somebody pitched us a project about Follow Dog, Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force in California. That was at the end of 2019. Then we started exploring the topic of human trafficking, kids, online enticement, doing a lot of research. We found about 50 different documentaries on human trafficking, but nothing was talking about sextortion and online enticement. And then COVID hit, and we realized we have to stick with the East Coast. We are both members of the Producers Guild of America. Me and my husband are a filmmaking team. And so we decided we're going to stay on the East Coast. We're going to work with the feds. We're going to work with HSI and Department of Justice. We're going to take a case that will blow your mind. It's basically a case of a Top Gun pilot that extorted about 300 different kids from all over the world. We had unlimited, unrestricted access to all the government files, to all the files, the entire investigation. So we wanted to show people how this happens on granular level. It's a true crime blended with education. We wanted to keep the elements of true crime. We wanted to keep the elements of surprise, to keep the story moving. Cinematography is really beautiful. We wanted to make it a cinematic experience at the same time, not a gory experience, but an experience people would, see, stay on the edge of their seats till the very end of the film and still be educated on this issue. We made it mainly for everybody. I mean, it's the fastest growing crime against kids that no one knows about. As you said, a lot of people are not talking about it, like Bruno in Encanto, the song, let's not talk about Bruno. No. We're not going to talk about sextortion. No. It's a taboo. But the thing is, we have to talk about it.
Yeah, I will say that this happened to my daughter during COVID when everyone was locked down, and she's just communicating with her friends on Discord, and strangers just started to show up in her Discord rooms, and it was just like, you got to be real careful who you're talking to, and just people, we don't know who these people are, and we realize, they're trying to get to her right then and there.
Yeah, we have at that time, our girls were 9 and 12. Now they're 11 and 14. It took us 2 years to make this doc. Usually it takes us about 12 months. And we were horrified because at first it was 1 in 7 children targeted for this. Now it's 1 in 4.
Yeah.
Anybody who's online at any time. So the numbers during COVID they skyrocketed. And we were like, we have to make this. We have no choice.
Yeah, and you mentioned in the documentary that it's happening everywhere. Discord apps, chat apps, video games. They're coming through every angle a child can get to on the internet, basically.
Yes, and they're very good at manipulating, and they're teaching each other how to do that. And it's like the whole chat groups exist where they know how to basically groom a child, because, everybody wants to be told they're pretty and they like them, and boys and girls, it's happening to everybody. We had so many cases recently. Unfortunately, 17-year-old boys get tricked into this, and several of them just recently lost their life. And that's why we thought during Mental Health Awareness Month, we want to talk about this, because kids don't have a way out. They don't know they're not the only one. And so it kind of ends tragically sometimes for them.
Well, I will say this. I see your movie as something of an extension of the documentary that's on Netflix, The Social Dilemma. It's an extension of that, the dangers of social media and how corrosive. I think I said in my intro before we brought you on, I don't think any child should have access to social media. But as it's been pointed out, like Alan's daughter through Discord, TikTok, we have a lot of comments and questions. I'll get to those in a minute. But like, if you have a child that's online in any form, they're on some live video game, like playing Fortnite, right? This can happen. It's rampant. So how do you even police it? It's literally like the access to kids now. It's crazy. And so what are the ways to even like stop it as a parent? Like, and I didn't know that, Alan, and that's really shocking to hear and disappointing to hear. But like, tell us like about the social media element and just like how these kids get sucked in.
So, I mean, we just did a limited 20-city tour. And, if people are talking about movies being dead in theaters, they're not dead in theaters. We were overwhelmed. We showed the film to over 5,000 people. And literally every location, coast to coast, somebody stood up and said, it's happening to my daughter. It's happening to my son. It's happening to me. Here is the chat. So, the social media just by itself is not either good or bad. We drive cars, we can get in a car wreck, or we can go and eat at a restaurant. We do have to know how to use social media. We have to know how to be safe on social media. We study how to drive a car for a year and a half with, an assistance. And I mean, the same thing applies to social media. We need to know what are the red flags. Like if somebody knows everything about you, but you know nothing about them, you never met them in real life, be very careful, because usually they friend somebody and then they friend of a friend. And then kids are very trusting, they're gullible, and you can't blame them. They just don't know what can happen. So they friend the person and they think they're friends with their friends. And then they give them information. Oh, I go to the school, or I'm on this team. Oh, cool. And then he knows where they live, or she, and they can target them and they can compliment them. Oh, I love your picture. Send me a bikini photo. And oftentimes just a topless photo, a bikini photo is enough for the kids to be extorted for months afterwards. They just twist. And we've been talking a lot with HSI about like the profile of a person who does that. There is no profile. It's basically can be anybody. Like if you see in the film, you'll be very shocked who the predator really was.
It's almost as if I remember back when I was in high school a long time ago, they showed us educational films, right? One of the educational films was about just safety and safety, driving safety, and some of these movies were horrific, and it had a good effect on me. I have never not worn a seatbelt in a car. When I was 16, I had already seen a couple of 16 millimeter movies in class that made me like, I am always going to wear my seatbelt. I don't want to end up, murdered and horribly disfigured in an accident or killed. And I feel like we need that kind of film that is geared towards kids. There's a lot of comments in the chat. Do you mind? There's like over 300 people watching us live right now. Do you mind taking some comments and questions here? You can. Okay, sure. So let's take some comments here. Diamond Plate says, welcome, Maria. Thank you for stopping by today. Kid 50 says, I will see this. Thank you for making this documentary. SQ1 artist says they need to put an age limit on social media and video games.
They do, but
they do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an age limit for a lot of things, but it doesn't mean someone can't sneak into an R-rated movie. Karen Gwen says, yes, parents don't use the internet as a babysitter. For sure. Davina Duckworth says, kids always think they're savvy online too. Is that what you find, that like kids think, I'm not going to get caught up in this, nothing's going to happen to me?
Yeah, all of them say that. But then when they hear from other kids, that's when it really kind of hits them hard. When an adult tells them, or a special agent comes to their school and starts giving them a PowerPoint presentation, they're like, whatever. And when they watch a movie, they're like, oh my gosh, this actually happened to her. And he looked like this in real life, but he looked like this on social media. And it starts clicking. It's almost like concrete thinking not abstract thinking. You have to show them examples, and they have to hear from other kids. And that's when they start being careful. We actually had kids delete their social media apps in the middle of the showing. The very last showing we did on the East Coast, they're like, okay, I'm done with Snapchat. And it was funny. And then they raised their hand and they're like, well, how do I stay safe? They don't want to be victimized. They want to be leaders, and they're going to be online. So we kind of have to, talk about Bruno until we're blue in the face, until we educate them, until they understand what can happen, and then they're smart enough to avoid it. I do believe they're smart enough to avoid it. We just never kind of brought it up to them. We never showed them on a granular level, hey, listen, this is a true crime. We kept it between PG and PG-13 so kids 10 and up can watch it. This case was insane. I have 5 volumes of files, and I mean, you don't want to read those files. Nobody wants to read those files. So I cleaned it up. Basically, 98% of filth was on the cutting floor. The 2% ended up in the film. And also some stuff that he did to avoid authorities ended up on the cutting floor because, it was just like too much. It was too fantastical, except it was real life. But why we did that is because we wanted kids to be able to see it with their parents, 10, 11, 12, 13. The target age is actually 10 to 15, and you still get the margins. You still get the younger ones and the older ones, but the target age for this is 10 to 15. So that's why we kind of put it together like that.
Solomon Thornton says, thanks for speaking out about this. Karen Wen says, I grew up with stranger danger drilled into my head. It applies to the internet. Someone in the chat says, not only Discord, TikTok is the #1 source. And Lord Thoth says, as a human trafficking / child prawn investigator, I can truly appreciate the struggle with children and social media. Lord Thoth, if you reach out to Film Thread, I can connect you with the Maria's publicist. You need to see this film because you're doing special screenings around the country, isn't that right?
Yes, we've been invited internationally. I just hung up with Pentagon today. We're going to screen for military and the Navy. We are screening for EU Parliament. We're going to Australia. We are going to several other European countries. So we are overwhelmed by requests, overwhelmed. We did not expect this to happen. But all the frontliners, the law enforcement, people who deal with this, they understand how big this is. They're getting about 80,000 reports of child exploitation per day. 80,000 per day, National Center for Missing Exploited Children, all the child exploitation, including sextortion. So it's a little bit overwhelming for us as filmmakers. We didn't know what we, stepped into when we started making film.
The chat's on fire with comments, so I'll get to as many as I can. But here we go. Crid of Junior says, to this day, I can't believe parents give their kids unlimited access to social media, let alone the internet. Effing insane. Thus, the supplement engineer, this seems like it comes back to parenting. Keep a better monitor and be active in what your children do. I think it's just have dinner with your kids every day. That was something when my kids were young. We just always had dinner. It was at a certain time. You had to sit there and eat, and we would just talk about stuff. I think that helps. That's the most simple thing I can think of. Ryan Landis, this is one of the scariest problems today. It is almost impossible to shelter children from anything now. Yeah, because they could go to a friend's house that has access to internet, even if you take away, they don't have a social media account. Education is the best defense. And then a question here, Crux Raju Chu, I'm saying that wrong. I'm so sorry. What safeguards do you think need to be put in place to help prevent this?
I think that #1 is education and prevention, right? There is a lot of groups who study this, like We Protect out of England. We work with them. They have millions of members, and they surveyed all the victims of this. And the victims said, had we known, we wouldn't have fallen into this. So #1 is education. Educate yourself how this happens on the granular level. And then just personal practical tips. Never have the child have their phone in their bedroom or in their bathroom at night ever. And also, their profiles, if you choose to give them social media, they should be private. They should not be set to public. And then camera and obviously photos cannot have geolocators in them. You have to disable that, because that's how, if they publish something to Snap and it's public, then the perpetrator just knows where your child lives because they just published their location at Snap. And that's how they actually, if you watch the film, you'll know that's one of the common threats. I know where you live. I know your school. I'll release your pictures and I will come and hunt you down, hunt down your family. And the kids are like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So we kind of want to tell them, you're not alone. There are millions of other children who fallen victims to this. It's not your fault. We won't take your phone away. We will be there for you. So you're not going to be able to stop them from using the internet. It's just not going to happen. You have to educate them to the level where they can educate their friends. Several of the kids who stood up said, this is happening to my best friend. What do I do? Like they already knew this was happening. They just didn't know what to do about it.
More questions here. CD Stein 69 says, do you think that the increase of these incidents is any way a correlation with the mainstream media push to change the language and normalization with terms like minor attracted persons?
Well, from what I hear from law enforcement, I'm a mini expert in this. They are the maxi experts in this. There are a lot of groups and sites now that kind of make this normal, and they enable each other how to, sextort kids for images. In the past, they used to be very abnormal and people didn't talk about it, didn't find friends in this space. Now the perpetrators are finding friends in this space. And the most recent development is Nigerian, banking scheme. Now it's Nigerian sextortion scheme against boys. They meet a female online who's very attractive. They send a photo, they flip on them and send me the gift card, send me $500, send me $5,000, or I'm releasing the image. So they're targeting older male children for that specific scheme for the money.
I even the sextortion stuff has happened. I used to watch a TV show. I'm embarrassed to admit this, 90 Day Fiance, before the 90 days. And one of the people that was on this show got catfished by a guy who's so-called British and needed money. And it's that scam happens. And, she had sent photos. So this happens not just to children. So there you go. Patrick Lemire asks, what is the source of predators? Are these overseas boiler rooms?
They have a lot of overseas rings, sextortion rings that we talk about in the film. We have a lot of predators on the just normal people living normal lives. And you can't really profile them because they've been trying to do it for 20 years and you can't really predict. There is no predictors what drives people to this behavior. That's what the agents told me recently, that like on the national level. But there are definitely sextortion rings where you think you're talking to one person and you're actually talking to 12 different people.
Anonymous says, I hope this documentary gets widely seen, especially by parents. And Kid 50 says, buying this on Vudu right now. So tell us about the release of the film and if you have a website that you can direct people to. So is there a website?
Yes, there is a sextortionfilm.com. We have about 8 different platforms that the film is released on TVOD. We're also doing a lot of community screenings across the country and internationally. If you click on resources, you will see free resources. You can show your child what sextortion is using 5-minute video and discuss it with them. You also have a way of reporting this and a way of taking down images. If you go to National Center for Missing Exploited Children, they can take down all the images and they can provide all the resources. And we have a lot of resources on the website as well, just free resources for you guys.
Cool. So it looks like everything's on the website. It's sextortionfilm.com, screenings, where to get it, and get the film. So I think this is really important. I'm really glad that you came on the show to talk to us about this today. And I wish you a lot of success with this. It's an important topic. And just as I'm a fortunate parent that my kids missed all of this. They were like just at the end of high school, kind of getting into Facebook, and neither of them is particularly interested in social media. But really, this is something that I think when we begin to study this more carefully, study social media and internet access, we're going to discover that it's worse for kids than smoking, all of this access. So congratulations on the film, and thank you. It's this type of film that I think needs exposure, and I'm happy that you're here on the show to talk to our audience. And I want to thank also our audience. We talk about a lot of different movies here. We were talking about Terrifier 2 and crazy weird horror films, and we're talking about House of the Dragon and She-Hulk, and I do think it's important for us to take the time to talk about other types of films. So thank you, Maria.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys. Thank you for
thanks for being on the show. Take care. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Yeah, I tell you, if you have a child, you need to see this movie. It's, you know, it was eye-opening, and to have seen it happen in my house, you know, thankfully I have a relationship with my daughter where she just came up to me with her cell phone, saw someone in the chat, and I go, oh, this is clearly a scam going on here. This is not who this person says they are, you know, and we dealt with it.